Welcome to part 5, either plot or don't bother. You'll hear writers being described as either plotters, i.e. those who plot their stories out before they start writing, or pantsers, who are those who just fly by the seats of their pants. I don't plot, but I really don't like the term pantser, and so I tend to use discovery writer to describe myself, which I think sounds much more exciting. The idea is the same though. Basically, you discover the story along with your readers. The truth is, most writers fall somewhere between the two extremes, and what works for one person is highly unlikely to work for another. That makes me trying to give you advice on this particular topic a little bit tricky. But I can tell you how I do it, and you can see if any part of that chimes with how your brain works. As I mentioned in the post on characters, I tend to start with the initial idea first and then come up with the people who would be able to tell the story. At that point, I start to write the book. I generally have a vision for the opening scene and a shadowy idea about what kind of book it's going to be, but that's about it. I will be feeling my way. I once heard the Queen of Crime, Val McDermott, say that she thinks of plotting a book as going on a car journey at night. She knows where she set off from and her destination, but between those 2 points, she can only see the road ahead as far as her headlights shine. This is exactly how I work too, although sometimes I'm not sure where the destination is. I write the opening scene, see how my characters react, and then that will lead me on to the next scene. I then come up with ideas for scenes that will allow me to show whatever I need the reader to know next, be that an example of the character's behaviour or something to move the plot forward. I never write a scene just for the sake of it. It always has a purpose in the overall story, even if I'm not entirely sure what the purpose is when I'm writing it. I find that I can only write about 1,500 words a day, and then I start to run out of steam. After that, I need to stop and give my brain until the next day to process what I've written and work out where the story will go next. I definitely can't just sit at my desk and write all day long, as I understand authors with plotted out books can do. But working at this rate, it takes me about 3 months to complete a first draft, which I don't think is bad going. One of the advantages of not plotting is that I'm always on my toes. For me, writing a book is like figuring out a huge puzzle, and I really enjoy the challenge of it. Stephen King, also a discovery writer, says that if he doesn't know where his stories are going, then that makes it harder for his readers to guess. Obviously, I'm not about to compare myself to Stephen King, but this is an appealing idea. For example, when I was writing An Unwanted Inheritance, I had no idea how I was going to resolve the plot until I got to the very end, when the way to tie it all up finally came to me. Interestingly, when this happens, I often discover that I've written little things that point in this direction earlier in the book without realising how useful they'll be later on. I consider this to be true artistic magic at work, and I get very excited about it when it happens. But it's probably just the old subconscious churning away in the background. Working without a plan is never dull. It can be frustrating and sometimes downright terrifying, but it's always exciting. For me, writing a book that's been plotted out already would lose some of the fun. I love that I never really have any idea of what's going to come next. Of course, there are major disadvantages to this approach too. I have to have my book in my head pretty much all the time, even subconsciously when I sleep, to make sure that I have something to write the next day. So even when I'm not at my desk, I'm always distracted, and that makes it hard to concentrate on anything else. Also, you're far more likely to get yourself stuck or write yourself into a corner with this approach than if you've got a plot to work to. Getting stuck is the most common reason for giving up on a novel, so you have to guard against that. And I'll do a later post on getting the work done, which will give you tips for how to get going again if you do find yourself fresh out of ideas. Another disadvantage is that I can't give my editor a synopsis before I start writing, or if I do, the final book is highly likely to be quite different from what I promised. There isn't really a solution for that, other than for everyone to trust the process. And I know that isn't an option for everyone, but that's how I work. If your blood runs cold in your veins at the thought of writing without an outline, then there are masses of resources out there to help you with structure, and lots of writers I know have very clear beats and plot points that they aim for as they go along. I think I do that instinctively and without a safety harness, but I know that isn't for everyone. My tip would be to try writing a novel using both techniques and see which feels more natural. NaNoWriMo, which is National Write a Novel in a Month, which takes place every November, is a fabulous way to have a go at discovery writing. The idea is that you write 50,000 words in a month by not editing as you go along, or even thinking that hard about what you've got so far. You just keep writing into the dark and see what you end up with. It can be hard work, but there is an enormous global community all writing with you, and you can find as much or as little support as you like. My book, The Thing About Claire, began life as a nano book. It was actually a play before that as well, but that's another story. Alternatively, you can buy yourself some lovely index cards and have a go at plotting out the whole thing before you start. There are loads of great books to help you. My particular favourite is Save the Cat, which is actually about how to write a screenplay, but is just as applicable to a novel. And if you, like me, get so far in the plan and then discover that your brain isn't cooperating, then perhaps you're a discovery writer too.